Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to get into another tier list. And today we're going to be covering another topic in Wuthering Waves, focused on equipment and gear. It's not going to be weapons, it's not going to be character dupes, it's going to be all of the various Sonata sets in the game, and which ones are really worth farming for, either through tacit fields or through, just straight up overworld farming. And we're going to be judging all of these different sets by A, who can use them, B, what their future potential might be, and C, probably the most important one, how actually powerful they are in practice. And so with that, we've got all of the different Sonata sets over here. I'm going to do a little bit of reordering just to get through, some of the oldest ones on the roster first, and then we'll get into, obviously, right, some of the new additions that came in version 2.0. What you're going to notice is that, unfortunately, right, I don't really have Tide-Breaking Courage on here. That's the ER set that gives a bonus when you reach 250% ER. I'm not putting that on here because, I'm going to be honest, it's not really worth farming right now because nobody on the roster uses it exceptionally well. It is usable by some people on the roster, but it doesn't really work for anybody and it's nobody's biz. So with that, that's all of the disclaimers. Now let's get into the list. First item on the list over here is going to be the Celestial Light set. And the value of this set when it comes to farming is dependent on one thing. Because ladies and gentlemen, in the current state of version 2.0, the Celestial Light set is only usable on a single character. And that character, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Jinxie. Nobody else on the roster uses the Celestial Light set. However, Jinxie synergizes very, very, very well with it. But we also have to keep in mind, right, that Spectral Rover doesn't use this set anymore, and there isn't any other Spectral damage dealer on the roster. The rest of them are supports. And so you have to think about it this way. You farm one of these for your Jinxie, if you do have her, and if you don't have Jinxie, this set is quite literally never actually worth farming. And so because of that, because of its limited use cases, right, and the fact that even if you farm a set, you're not going to transfer it over to anybody, I'm going to have to put it at a B. And the only reason why it is in B is because Jinxie is one of the strongest characters in the game. And so simply having it just so that Jinxie can use it is a great asset to your account. But nobody else on the roster is ever going to use this goddamn thing. And so because of that, even though Jinxie's strong, the value of farming this set is going to be dragged down a lot by its limited users. Next up, we have a similar situation, and that is going to be for the Sierra Gale set. So the primary user of the Sierra Gale set is going to actually be Gian. You can tell by the Gorilla Echo skill and also its Nightmare version, this is specifically made for Gian because it buffs heavy attacks. However, you also have to keep in mind that the Sierra Gale set is also usable on a couple of other characters on the roster. Namely, Alto, if he is being played as a main DPS, and sometimes, a character like Jian Xin maybe, or even Yang Yang, if you're trying to give them some more DPS capabilities. However, we have to keep in mind that this is not even the optimal set for those characters, because they're gonna have buffing abilities and outro skills, right, that support another Resonator. Buffing skill over here, and of course, a buffing skill over here. And so because of that, these characters can oftentimes be better on a set like Moonlit Clouds. And so Sierra Gale overall isn't really that strong either. It's great on Gian, it is his best in slot, and it is usable on other characters, but guess what? It's not a top pick for them either. And so given that, it's almost an identical situation to the Celestial Light set in that it's good on one character, it's exceptionally good on one character, but it's really an afterthought on every single other person that could potentially use it. I don't actually recommend using it on characters like Alto. I don't recommend using it on Yang Yang or Jian Xin. And so in my eyes, if you are trying to get the most bang for your buck, it really only has one effective user. So with that, we're going to put it into B for now. We'll put it a little bit above Celestial Light because it does have use cases outside of just Jinxie, like it is for that Echo, or for that set. Next up, we're going to be having Void Thunder. And this set, well, this set's a little bit interesting. The main user of this set is going to be Zhang Liao. And with the addition of the new Lightning or the new Nightmare Thundering Memphis Echo, this set has a lot more potential, especially due to the fact that the old 4-cost Echoes that it used to have were really clunky to use and didn't really feel that great at all. However, there is an important factor with this set, and that's the fact that it has a lot of potential users. Zhang Liao can use it, and it's best in slot. Calcharo can use it, and you might find this a little bit controversial like I have, Yinling can also use it. and it's not going to be best in slot for her buffing ability, but it is going to be best in slot if you're using her as a main DPS or a dual DPS. Yinlin even has the ability to use the Nightmare Tempest Mephis, which has a great echo skill and a buff to resonance skill damage that she can fully leverage too. Another character, right, that's also going to use it and has similar buffing potential and DPS potential as Yinlin is also going to be Lumi. So that makes 4 users where Void Thunder is, I think, a top option for 3 of them. Lumi, Calcharo, and Zhang Liao, and then a secondary option for Yinlin. And so in terms of this set having a lot of different use cases and also being quite farmable and having a lot of different 3 costs and having a lot of different options in the 4 cost slot now with 2.0, I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm going to put Void Thunder in the S ranking for now because it has and is a top option for very, very, very many users. Very, very many of them. And you building one of these sets means that you'll be able to transfer it around to a lot of different characters. And that just inherently is a lot more value, right, than a set that's only best in slot on one of them, like it is for the Sierra Gale set and the Celestial Light set. Next up, we're moving on to probably the worst set in the game. And that's going to be Freezing Frost. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to preemptively put it in the D tier. Actually, I'll preemptively put it in the C tier. Because the only user of this set, realistically, is Ling Yang. And ladies and gentlemen, this character just sucks. This character is such a poor investment idea for a majority of players due to his clunky playstyle, bad weapon options, and just annoying overall performance compared to other characters. He's just not very good. Not a lot of people enjoy playing with him. He has bad animations, clunky combat, and what this means is that the best in slot character for this Echo set is literally a standard 5-star. There is no limited DPS character that even uses the Freezing Frost set. It does have potential on Jeja if you're using her as a main DPS, but this really doesn't have that great performance. Jeja's going to be way better on the new coordinated attack set or even the Moonlit Clouds set, and she'll have way higher performance in her teams. Sanhua, on the other hand, is one of the best sub-DPS buffers in the game, and if you're using Freezing Frost on her, that's basically the same as Wuthering Waves Terrorism. Let's be honest here. You want Sanhua on Moonlit Clouds, I think, until the game EOSs. Any other Sonata set on Sanhua is kind of like just combat malpractice at that point, so I don't recommend Freezing Frost on her. Yohu is a healer, so she should use the healer set. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, with Ling Yang as the only real user, and with his incredibly low power level, this set is going into C. Honestly, you could make the argument that it goes in D. We're gonna have to have a loser here. And I think we make this one the loser today. I think we just make this one the loser today. Do not farm this set. I don't recommend ever building one, and it's not going to make a lot of great changes to your account if you invest in this. Next up, we're gonna have Havoc Eclipse. And this is going to be one of the most popular sets in the game for one reason, because it's Camellia's best in slot. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? A lot of people like Camellia. One of the great reasons for Havoc Eclipse being so good is the fact that it has a new 4-cost echo, the Nightmare Crownless. And this gives a buff to Havoc damage and basic attack damage bonus, which is perfect for Camellia. It stacks up by using a basic attack or heavy attack, which every Havoc character does. And you even have the option of going with the regular Crownless, right? And getting a resonance skill damage boost instead if it's a different kind of wielder, or if you're Havoc Rover, you can turn this Dreamless skill into a nuke that does way more damage when Havoc Rover is using it, a 50% increase. And so this set in particular has a lot of potential users. Dan Jin sort of uses it, but is better on the new Moonlit or the new Midnight Veil set in 2.0. Camellia is obviously a best in slot user of it as well. And Havoc Rover, right? When they're obviously spec'd onto Havoc, uses this set really well too. And this is, especially as we get closer and closer to Havoc Rover's S6, this makes them one of the strongest free-to-play characters in the game. And when you do get Havoc Rover's S6, they might be the strongest free-to-play character in pretty much all of gacha gaming at that point. And so I highly recommend getting at least one set of Havoc Eclipse just so that you can use it on Havoc Rover in the first place. And then you can transfer pieces over to a Camellia if you ever do pull her, because she synergizes really well with this thing as well. And the last bonus that makes this set really, really, really good is the tacit field that it's from. Because ladies and gentlemen, when you farm this set, you also get Moonlit Clouds at the same time, which is the premier sub DPS set that is very heavily focused on buffing a main DPS character. And so you get the main DPS's damage set, and then you get the buffers set at the same time. And that is a lot of extra mileage from just doing one tacit field. So with that, even though the Havoc Eclipse set only has 2 users, it is best in slot on both of them. I believe that puts it, in my opinion, at an A. That, in my opinion, puts it at an A. And you could make the argument that it gets bumped up to S because of the tacit field that it's from. I'll go ahead and just keep it an A for right now, just to be able to, populate all of the different categories. Next up, we have Inferno. We have Molten Rift. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a really similar situation to Void Thunder. Molten Rift has a lot of potential users. And all of those potential users are going to be Chang Li, who uses the set really well. You have Encore, who uses the set really well. And you have Chisha, who also uses the set really well. And it is, without a doubt, indisputably, the best in-slot set for all of them. And there is now a new forecast, right, for the set, the new Nightmare Inferno Rider, that buffs skill damage and fusion damage, while the baseline one buffs basic attack damage. And what this means is that you have a best-in-slot forecast for Chang Li, and you have a best-in-slot forecast for Encore. You could think about using it on Mortifi, but if you are, you're griefing, because he's better on Moonlit Clouds. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a set that works and is best in slot on 3 characters, and the biggest bonus of all is the tacit field that it's from. Because if you decide to farm this tacit field in the Desert Rock Highlands, you will get Molten Rift, and you'll also get Void Thunder at the same time. And what this means is that this set is S2, and you get to farm the other S-rank Sonata set at the same time. These 2 sets have the most viable users in the game, and you can farm them together. It's a little bit insane how much value you're able to get from this one tacit field over here. And this is the other thing. Chang Li and Zhang Liao released at roughly the same exact time. They released at roughly the same exact time. And so a lot of players, including myself, farmed this tacit field for maybe 2 months straight. And that was one of the best decisions we could have made for our account if we had pulled Chang Li and we had pulled Zhang, and obviously we got Zhang Liao for free in version 1.2. It is, I do believe, for a lot of players' memories, the one set that they farmed the most. And that's for a good reason. These sets are S for a reason. So with that, we're almost through with all of the different sets. Next up, we got Lingering Tunes. And let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, Lingering Tunes is now at the point in version 2.0 where it's simply just not good. The only character where it was potentially competitive on and just straight up not worse than the other sets was Zhang Liao. But ever since the introduction of the new Nightmare Thundering Mephis, Void Thunder is now better on Zhang Liao. This is a general all-purpose set that's usable on pretty much every character, but it's going to give you significantly less performance than the character's on-attribute set. And so you can decide to build one of these as like a stopgap, but because of how elemental damage bonuses work in this game, it's really not worth it ever even like investing in these pieces in the first place, especially now that we've gotten into 2.0. You might be saying, oh, I'll eventually use this glacial damage piece one day, but that's the thing, it's going to be glacial damage bonus. And so you're going to be investing a lot of materials, a lot of resources into a set that you're quickly going to replace. And just building a general Lingering Tune set overall is going to take a lot of resources. And while I might have saved a lot of pieces, I might just go ahead and start getting rid of these, because I'm going to be honest, not that great. Not that great. Even if these rolls are awesome, I'm really never going to end up using these pieces ever again, because I'd rather farm a DPS's optimal set than just have like a stopgap that I know that's going to be replaced really soon. However, it does need to be identified. I'll go ahead and put it in B. I might just go ahead and put it into B based off the sheer fact that it might not be best in slot on every character. It is going to be somewhat slightly usable on every character. And thankfully, the Echo skill, the Mech Abomination, is decent. It's pretty fast to use. It's a summon, and there's really no cast animation that makes it more annoying. But do keep in mind that you could also view this as a resource trap, in that you'll just have all of these Lingering Tunes echoes that you're not actually equipping on a character. And if you have an echo leveled up and you're not using it, that means that it's wasted experience, because you could simply fire that echo, turn it back into more experience, and then use it to level other ones and progress your account that way. So you have to keep that in mind. If you have plus 25 echoes like I do, just sitting in the inventory, not equipped on a character and not doing anything. We'll drop it down to C for now. All right, next echo that we're going to be talking about today is Rejuvenating Glow. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to go ahead and say it needs to go into S tier. But this is the thing. You don't have to farm a lot of Rejuvenating Glow pieces. That's because Shorekeeper uses it, Verena uses it, Baizhi uses it, and Yohu uses it. John Shin can use it as well, so can Yan Wu, and the last person that can use it is Tao Chi, because she heals herself. So many people on the roster can use it in some way, with built-in healing across their kit. Even fucking Dan Jin can use it as well. Actually, that's, I think, why I have some of the pieces on her for that. The idea behind Rejuvenating Glow is that it provides a passive buff that activates on healing and lasts for 30 whole seconds. Oh, sorry. And Spectral Rover can use it as well. There are just so many different users of this set, and the way that it stacks across the entire team with like Moonlit Clouds and other buffs makes it almost a permanent mainstay for every single character on the roster. And the fact of the matter is that some characters scale off HP, while other Rejuvenating Glow wielders will scale off of attack. And so what that means is you're gonna want at least 2 sorted different sets, typically ER, typically 2 ER3 costs, a Fallacy of No Return, and just a lot of different 1 costs. 2 for HP scalers like Shorekeeper and Baizhi, and then 2 for attack scalers, right? Like Verena, or potentially Danjin or Spectral Rover, depending on how you're playing them. And then maybe even a defense one if you're putting it on Tao Chi and Yan Wu. You can use basically every single possible main stat in the 1 slot on Rejuvenating Glow. And the thing is, as long as you have an ER roll, the pieces are probably good. And if you have 2 ER3 costs, with occasionally a spectral damage slot in for Shorekeeper, you're kind of all set. You don't need to search for crazy substats on the Rejuvenating Glow set, but it's important to simply have them so that you can equip it across all the potential users on your roster and gain access to that attack buff across your entire team. Because this is going to be, again, one of the most important things to scaling up your team's damage and getting you to a TOA clear or hologram clear. It might not be worth doing tacit fields for this, but it definitely is worth farming echoes just to be able to, you know, build up that 5-piece effect and activate it across your teams. It's a good set. Next up, we're gonna have Moonlit Clouds. And ladies and gentlemen, you probably know where this one is going to go. Moonlit Clouds, in my opinion, might actually be just the best Sonata set in the game. It might actually be the best Sonata set in the game. And that's for a simple reason. Basically, any character that has an outro skill that looks like this, where the incoming resonator has damage amplified until the resonator is switched out, Moonlit Clouds is going to be usable on them. This basically stacks with a character's outro skill to provide the buffs that you're seeing in this outro skill, and then also a 22.5% attack buff. And when you stack these 2 effects together, ladies and gentlemen, the damage amplification bonuses and the damage boost that you provide are intense. They're crazy. And the difference between having a Moonlit Clouds buff active and not on your main DPS character is absolutely fucking insane. And when you combine that with the Impermanence Heron that also grants a 12% damage boost on top of all of those other buffs that we just covered, oh my goodness, it is incredibly strong. And the best part about it is that you don't even need fantastic investment on the pieces. This is like a random Sanhua build that I use with my Camellia, and it gets the job done because the investment in all these pieces doesn't matter for the actual buffs that you're giving. And so you could go in with +0 pieces. You could go in with +5 pieces and still have the same buffing capability as a fully built character. And so this makes it one of the most efficient sets you can ever fucking use. And because of that, right, it's also one of the most efficient sets to farm because there are so many potential users like Sanhua, like Mortifi, like Danjin, like Alto, like Yang Yang, like Tao Chi. Basically any character with an ultra buff that does damage amplification, Yinlin, Rosia, Jeja, they can all use it, and it's amazing. It's a mainstay on basically any team that incorporates a main DPS with a sub DPS that buffs them, and if you're not using it in those situations, you're kind of griefing. It's a lot of bang for a little bit of investment, and you can also invest highly in the set and then get those sub DPS characters doing more damage. So that's all of our 1.0 sets. Time for us to move on to, ladies and gentlemen, the 2.0 sets. And the first one up is going to be Empyrean Anthem, another sub-DPS oriented set that focuses on coordinated attacks. And so I'm going to go ahead and rank this into an A for now. And there's one simple reason for that. It's a very, very powerful set, but it doesn't have a lot of users. The main users of this set are characters that can do coordinated attacks. Characters like Jeja, characters like Yinlin, and of course, characters like Mortifi. This set gives a similar ER bonus to what we're seeing in Moonlit Clouds, but it has a different bonus overall. It grants a 20% attack boost to the active character, or your main DPS, for 4 seconds after you critically hit with a main attack, or after you critically hit with a coordinated attack, and then it also buffs your coordinated attack damage by 80%. The 4-cost Echo, Hikari, also buffs coordinated damage by 40%. And so you get a 120% damage coordinated attack boost, and this buff. However, you need to make sure that you have a high critical rate in the first place to be able to activate this buff. Otherwise, you might not actually get this 20% attack bonus if you're never critting. And so this set inherently requires a lot more investment. And for characters, right, like Yinlin or Jeje, having something like String Master to help boost up that crit ratio and make it hit higher numbers is going to be really helpful to actually making the set work. Similarly, right, your Mortifi might want to be on something like Static Mist to get the job done if you're using him on the coordinated attack set. And so it does have 3 best in slot users at the moment, and 3 is okay, but it does require a lot of investment to properly use and get a lot of mileage out of. And so because of that, it kind of needs a 5-star weapon for it to work properly, and it needs like really good substats for it to work properly, like what you're seeing here, double crit on every single piece. Without those, the set kind of sucks. And I would recommend you just use Moonlit Clouds instead if your investment on your characters is lower. And so with that, because of the relatively high cost to actually using it and the limited number of users, it goes into A for me. But it is incredibly strong if those coordinated attackers are well invested in. And it outperforms Moonlit Clouds 100% if those conditions are met. But in most cases, Moonlit Clouds is going to have similar performance, and it's not going to be like miles better, right? The coordinated attack set isn't like way better than Moonlit Clouds. It's a little bit better at the top level. And at anything below top level investment, Moonlit Clouds is actually going to outperform it. Next up, we have the new Spectro Frazzle set, one that focuses on giving crit and a spectral damage bonus as you stack this debuff. And I'm going to be honest, in the current state of the game, it's probably C tier. In version 2.0 of the game, where we only have one user of the Spectral Frazzle set, ladies and gentlemen, and they are Spectral Rover, who does basically no damage, it's going to be C tier. However, what we have to keep in mind is that Phoebe, the new character releasing in version 2.0 or version 2.1, is Spectro. She's releasing in version 2.1. I would bet my left nut.
What do you mean by that
She's going to use this set. Because it doesn't make sense, ladies and gentlemen, for her to use a 1.0 Sonata set at all. She's probably going to use, as a 2.0 character, the new 2.0 Sonata set. And so because of that, based off of some speculation, I'm going to go ahead and bump it up to maybe the top of B tier for now. We're going to have a free-to-play character able to use it, Spectral Rover, and I'm pretty sure that Phoebe is going to be able to use this set as well in version 2.1. It wouldn't make very much sense otherwise, based off of the fact that her attribute is confirmed as Spectro. And so with that, the overall strength of the set does appear to be strong. You have a spectral damage bonus, and then a whopping 20% crit rate boost if you're able to inflict the Spectral Frazzle debuff. And then when you build up that debuff even more, you'll gain a 15% damage bonus. And so this is a ton of free stats, a ton of damage, and will have you with builds that can sometimes overcap on crit rate if you're able to get substats like mine, right? And double crit on every single piece in the set. And so with that, I really do think that there's potential. We still have to see what Phoebe looks like and how her kit plays. If she is, again, I'm pretty sure she is going to be using the Spectral Frazzle set, but we do have to keep in mind, right? There's only going to be 2 users of it if Phoebe does use it. And if she doesn't, then we're going to have Spectral Rover as the only user of this set ever since version 2.0 has launched. And if that's the case, it might even go all the way down to D. But based off of speculation, once again, I do think it's in B tier, but it's still only going to be 2 potential users on the roster if Phoebe does in fact use it. And I'm going to be honest, that doesn't make it super efficient to farm. It's going to be a similar situation to what we're seeing for the Arrow Gale set and the Celestial Light set, where there's really only one real user of it. And they might be a great user of it. We'll just have to see. Next up, we got Frosty Resolve. And based off the prior reasoning for all of the other sets that we're seeing in B tier, it's going to go into B tier as well. Because ladies and gentlemen, there's only one character that uses it, and it's Carlotta. The bonuses on this set are absolutely amazing. huge boost to Resonance skill damage, huge boost to Glacial damage, and then a stacking Resonance skill buff. But oh my gosh, the conditions on this set are so goddamn specific that it's basically impossible for any other character to fully stack it up. And the Echo skill itself, right, goes on cooldown and then releases its cooldown if you're able to really go ahead and like cast your Liberation 4 times. And Carlotta's the only character that can do that. And so based off of this, right, it's best in slot on one character. Some websites are saying that it's also Ling Yang's new best in slot. Maybe. But if Ling Yang is the other user of a set, I don't really think that feeds too much into value for most players. So with that, I would just say, hey, it's best in slot on Carlotta. If you have her, you're going to really want her on this. And if you don't have her, there's almost no point in farming this set. And so because it only has one potential user, it's going to fit into the B category alongside the Celestial Light, Arrow Gale, and Spectral Frazzle set, assuming Phoebe works with it. Last up, we're going to have Midnight Veil, the new Havoc sub DPS set. And this set only works with Havoc damage dealing sub DPSs. And there's only 2 of them. The problem is, it's not really that good. It's not really that good. Let me show you who can use it. You have Rosia, and then you also have Dan Jin. These are the only characters that can actually fully utilize the set without half of its effect being wasted. What it does at a 5-piece is that it deals 480% Havoc damage to surrounding enemies, basically gives you an outro skill damage boost, and then buffs the incoming Resonator with 15% Havoc damage bonus for 15 seconds. The 4-cost Echo, the Nightmare Impermanence Heron or Lorelei, don't grant any additional buffing capability. All they do is they provide a damage bonus and deal damage. Look at it this way. This 4-piece damage bonus is 15% Havoc damage, or 5-piece. The Impermanence Heron, on its Echo skill, gives a 12% boost. And so this Havoc damage set, or this Havoc buffing set, is competing with 22.5% attack from Moonlit Clouds, a 12% all attribute damage bonus from the Heron, and all you have to buff it with is 15% Havoc damage. That's basically 3% Havoc damage versus a 22.5% attack boost. And let me just say it this way. A 22.5% attack boost is a lot more than 3% Havoc damage, if you're looking at it from a pure buffing perspective. And sure, Moonlit Clouds gives a 10% ER. This gives 10% Havoc damage. And Moonlit Clouds won't give this 480% Havoc damage buff on outro. But guess what? It's just, this set is a little bit painful to farm. It has really, really limited use cases. And in a lot of situations, at lower investment, Moonlit Clouds is simply better. This set is a little bit like the coordinated attack set, but it simply has less users and less actual impact in combat. And so because of this, I would recommend most players actually build Moonlit Clouds on Rosia instead of this set, and you kind of just forget this set exists if you're trying to get the most efficient building of your characters. And it's rough. Dan Jin and Rosia are the only characters that can use it, and when they do use it, it's not like it vastly, wildly outperforms Moonlit Clouds. It's almost balanced a little bit too well. I think that Kuro could have made this set a little bit more broken. They could have put in a little bit more power into it, and I think that would have made it a lot more attractive as like a value proposition when it comes to farming, and it's a little bit disappointing, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit disappointing. So with that, I do not have the tie-breaking courage set on here because it is not even close to best in slot with any character that currently exists on the roster. A lot of people are theorizing that it might be Brance, just based off of the fact that it's tie-breaking. That's what boats do, and he has a pirate ship. But we'll just have to see, right, how its actual use cases are, depending on the details of his kit. And we don't know very much about him at all. So with that, that's going to be my final rankings. You're going to see that a lot of the 1.0 sets have withstood the test of time, and the 2.0 sets don't really look like they're a lot of must farms, depending on the characters on the roster. And so with that, I'll see y'all next time. Let me know what you all think. Peace out.